exit without saving. We're going to do that. And then we've got the general information. So we're going to go into this more in a future presentation and get into more of these options. So we'll take a look at that later. Let's close that out. We've got the more actions to add a note. So we have a new option that we can add a note down here. So if we wanted to put a little bit of customization in our report, we have the note adding. And that's a new one, as they say here. Export to Excel. So that's quite useful. If I want to do more customization, then of course I can export it to Excel, which is a way that I can then display it to somebody or give it to somebody, but it's also a way that I can do a lot more customization than I can within QuickBooks itself, like customizing the fonts or the color of the text and so on. The problem with that, however, is that every time I do the report, I would have to export to Excel in order to do that further kind of customization. So you might want to do that a little bit, because just a little bit of customization, a little bit of fonts beyond what could be done in QuickBooks could make you stand out a little bit, because it's going to give you some differentiation, but you don't want to get too extreme, because generally you'll have to do those customization steps every time you process the reports. Whereas if you do the customization within QuickBooks, you can save the customization that you can do within QuickBooks and hopefully not have to do it every time. So export as a CSV, which is basically like an Excel file that doesn't have the Excel formatting. You can think of it as, generally it's a comma sliced data. So it just has the data in it. So if you wanted to just have the data, then that might be useful if you're going to import it somewhere else that doesn't want the formatting of an Excel file. Now, you can print and save it as a PDF. That's going to be quite common if you want to save the report as a PDF to most likely give it to somebody else, remembering that if you're providing this to a client or supervisor, you have to think about the best formatting to do so, because the presentation and packaging is usually a big deal, right? It's gonna give people confidence or lack thereof in you. So we'll talk more about maybe the best way to package things later. We can email the report, which again, we have to think about how we're going to email in it, because if there's multiple reports and you email like 10 different reports as an attachment, that might not be as efficient or nice looking as if we were maybe to export as a PDF, combine them at least into a zipped file, so we give them at one time in a zipped file, or possibly put them together in a formal report as in Excel or in QuickBooks has the report function, or possibly we export them to Excel and use Excel and Word to make a more customized report. So those are some options we'll talk about later. Schedule a report, add to management reports. The management reports are going to be one of the things that QuickBooks has to group reports together in a little bit more formal style. So again, that might be one option to provide the reports in a little bit more formal type of way. We'll talk about those options more in future presentations. So we went through these. You can refresh the report down here. So this is like the run button now. We have the refreshing of the report. So every time we go back to the first tab and back on over, instead of hitting the run button, we might hit the refresh button if they stick to this style. Let's take a quick look at the classic view just to do a comparison over here. So we don't know exactly where they're gonna land between the two. That's why we update these each year, but it's basically the same options here. Now you've got your customization. Here's where the years, the display options. Here's where you have active. Now this one is also in the customization, so we'll talk more about it later. This is one they removed from this bit because I think it's already over here in customization, so that they cleaned it up from the modern view to give us a little less space. This one we saw was the compared to another period, the previous year. Here's the dollar change, the percent change. And then you've got the accounting toggle that we saw, and then the run report instead of the refresh button. And then you have your collapse item here. Then you have your sort. Now this one I believe also is going to be in the customized area. So they took it out of the modern view because it's going to be in here, I believe, as well. Here's where the add notes were, edit title. So you can edit the titles here. Again, I think that's going to be also in the customized. So the old view, the classic view has some repetition in the standard view and in the customized, which I think are some of the things they cleaned out in the more modern view to make it a little bit slicker looking here, and then have those other options in the customized. So then we have the title. You can email it. Here's the email option. Here's the print, and then here's the export to Excel, export to PDF, add to manage reports, and then the cog button has the compact view versus the non-compact view, and you could click in here adjusting the title. And then the other options in this view is in the customize options, which looks like this. So this is what we'll get into next time, but you could see there's a little bit of repetition here with the, for example, the classic, the cash versus accrual and so on, has some duplicates, which I think they cleaned up a bit again in the modern view. So this is what we deal with QuickBooks Online. These options are basically the same. You can see that the options haven't really changed. It's just surface formatting typically on where things are located and kind of the slickness of the bar that they're trying to A/B test. That's typically what's going to happen. That's typically one of the reasons that, again, we update the course each year so that we can try to keep up to date with the new looks and feels. But just remember, as they change the look and feel, it doesn't change the double entry accounting system, right? Everything's basically the same. It's not usually that they're adding new functionality or taking functionality away. They're just changing how you get to that functionality. So if you keep that in mind, then hopefully it'll help people not to panic every time QuickBooks makes a change to their web page. If you're used to QuickBooks Desktop, then you might panic every time they change something because the desktop version was the same for like ever, like the entire existence of the thing. Whereas QuickBooks Online is basically a website which they can change all the time and are typically going to try to A/B test all the time. Even, like I say, even if they got it perfect, I don't think they would stop there. They would keep changing it because that's what web designers do, right? So it's always going to be changing, it seems to me, but that is what it is.